Hello lovely people, welcome to another book chat, the regular roundup of stuff I've been reading at some point in my past. I've got 4 books to talk about this week, 2 fiction, 2 non-fiction. I'm going to start with my fiction.
Sophie Vlogs.
So, the first book I want to talk about is Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzales. This is a very sweet bisexual romance, and so I had a real craving. I was reading a lot of heavier books, like Victorian mysteries and that kind of thing, and I just wanted something sweet. And this very much delivered. We follow Darcy Phillips, and her mum is a teacher at school, which means that she has access to some of the systems, and she's essentially made it so that there's this locker that is never claimed, and people can put letters into it anonymously asking for advice, and she will anonymously reply to them because she's really into relationship advice and types of relationships and how you express emotions and that kind of thing. She is so up on all of those things, so she dispenses this advice. She does not want anyone to know who she is, because if it gets out that it's her who's running this locker, her best friend will be very angry at her for something that this locker suggested to someone else. But one day, while she's picking up the letters, she is caught by new boy at school, Brougham, and he essentially blackmails her into helping him try and get his ex-girlfriend back. Shenanigans ensue, a romance develops. This very much felt just like a teen movie in a book form, and that is so what I was here for. Things I really loved about this is, because Darcy is bisexual, she is part of her school's, I can't remember the exact name it has, but essentially the queer support group. And she has some really great moments of discussing biphobia and that kind of thing. I'm also bisexual, and if I had read a novel like this when I was a teenager that had very explicit discussions of stuff like internalized biphobia and how easy it is for passing comments that other people say that they don't necessarily mean anything by, but have such a massive effect on you and how you view yourself and the ways that you feel that you're allowed to have relationships and not allowed to have relationships and all of these kinds of things, and feeling queer enough and all of that, that would have meant the world to me, and also would have helped me come out earlier in my life. So that was something that I absolutely loved about this, and I know that was what was influential in Sophie Gonzales writing this, is that she explicitly wanted to write a bisexual romance where the main character ends up with someone of a different gender, and I did actually really appreciate that. I've never read a book like that before, so that was really great. I think one thing is that at the start, Brougham is set up to be quite he's blackmailing her, and that's a difficult thing to deal with. It does get dealt with, I will say. It's not something I would find it difficult to root for a relationship whereby one character is explicitly blackmailing the other character, and I do think that is something that is kind of acknowledged and dealt with here, in very much a way that characters communicate and realise that they were on different pages in what they were understanding was happening, and I appreciated that. I definitely wish that there had been maybe slightly more of these moments of communication, especially towards the end. A lot of the conflict that is stopping characters from being together is stuff that if they just had a conversation they could solve, which I know is a lot of people's bugbears, which is why I'm mentioning it. It does get resolved, it's just I think that if we could have slightly lessened the amount of time that was happening, I think I maybe would have rated this slightly higher. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I really liked about this. I really liked Darcy's relationships with her family. There's a whole stuff to do with her mum not really being present enough in her life that I really enjoyed seeing that actually get acknowledged and sort of steps made. I also really loved her relationship with her sister. This very much delivered to me the sort of teen movie vibes that I was after. So I definitely had a really fun time. I would be interested in reading more books by Sophie Gonzales, for sure. If you've read any of her other books and you have recommendations for where to go, do let me know. Or other sweet queer books with this kind of vibe, because they are something I would like to read more of. The other fiction book I read was a very short novella on my Kindle, and that was A Dead Djinn in Cairo by Djeli Clarke, which is a prequel to... I can't remember the name of the first book in the series, but I will put it in the description down below. So it's a prequel novel to that series, but my understanding, and having read it, I do agree, is that it's really good to read this short story before you start the series, because it will explain a lot about the setup of that series. I think there is a second short story as well that I should read before picking that one up, and I definitely will. But this is a really interesting world. Bear in mind, this is such a short story. The world building already, I'm like so intrigued. It's like this 1920s Cairo, and essentially it's this world in which there was this guy, and he caused loads of chaos because he realized that you can like blam between worlds. So now there are like creatures in this world, like Djinn and angels, like, or like beings that call themselves angels and that kind of thing. So at the start of this novel, a Djinn has been murdered, as you might guess from the title. Our main character is this detective, and she's trying to figure out like what's happened. And it's very fast paced because it is very short. I wholly absolutely predicted like the reveal of like who's doing all this stuff, but I think that's okay because it's such a short novella that it's like I was given all my clues and I pieced them together, and that was really fun. My absolute favourite thing about this is the world building. I think this world is so cool. My main complaint about this is it was just so short, and I realise that's a ridiculous thing to complain about a short story for, but I think it's not like complaining, it's more like a testament to how intrigued I am by this world, in that I just wanted more, I just wanted to spend more time there, I wanted to spend more time with our main character, I wanted to spend more time like exploring what this world is like, and how this like technology kind of works, and how all of these beings coexist, and all of these things. So this is one that I definitely think that if you want to read Djeli Clarke's series, like, it sounds like you really do have to read these short stories before you go into the rest of it to get a lot of much needed context. But I just wanted more, which is a good complaint, because, you know, I'm not like you. It's always better to want more than less. Moving on to my non-fiction, I read Uncommon People: The Rise and Fall of the Rock Stars by David Hepworth. This goes through from 1955 to 1995, so each chapter is a year, and each chapter picks a different like person or moment in rock history and is unpacking it. So I definitely felt like the start of this book was really strong. He's starting off and he's picking different rock stars or moments in rock history, and he's kind of looking at like how the idea of a rock star developed. And that's in lots of different ways and lots of different facets. Each chapter is not just like telling you about a moment in rock history, but it's also looking at like how that set a precedent for what we understand a rock star to be, or what we understand rock star behaviour to be. And his kind of argument is that we don't have rock stars anymore, and that like social media and the immediacy of these interactions and those sorts of things have sort of in some ways taken away from this idea of what a rock star is and how a rock star behaves, which is an interesting concept and one that I was interested to see how he would unpack. I think the earlier sections of this worked for me a lot better than some of the later ones did, and I think partly it's because he is a music journalist, and I felt like he started off really, really strong with this like thesis for what we are looking at, and how these early pioneers were developing the idea of what a rock star is and how that really came to be. It was in the later chapters, I think, that I just felt like he didn't end on such a good... I didn't feel like he ended on an argument. I felt like it kind of petered out a bit, and it was like, oh, well, digital music really changed the way that music works. And I was like, yes. And that kind of thing. Some chapters really shone. Like, there's a whole chapter about Bob Marley that is based around David Hepworth going to see Bob Marley when he was like breaking out in and all that kind of thing. And like that chapter worked so well for me. I could really see how strong he is as a music journalist. It's just other chapters were, to be honest with you, some of them were really reductive. Like, especially like the chapter on Freddie Mercury, I felt like was really reductive. I felt a bit like the chapter on Prince was a bit reductive. I also have to say, this goes through from 1955 to 1995. How many women does he focus on? Like 5. And again, like his entire Janis Joplin chapter, so reductive. So I think that this has such a cool concept at its heart. I think I can tell that he does not normally write such long pieces of writing. I have heard really good things about his first novel, and based on this I would read his first novel because I did find this eminently readable. So easy to read. I read this in 2 days. It was a super quick read. And I think that if you don't know a lot about rock stars, you'll get a lot out of this. I think another reason why I felt like some of these chapters were reductive is because I like rock music, and a lot of the tales he's telling I already know because they're extremely famous moments. And when he's using them as a lens to apply to our understanding of rock stardom, that was great because it's like, yeah, I already know what you're talking about, but like the analysis is so interesting. When he's just like telling you them, I was like, yeah, I know. It was an immensely famous moment, you know? So, one that I found very readable. I think it is a great book if you don't know a lot about rock music, and I think it has some real moments of brilliance in it. It didn't 100% deliver on everything for me, but you know, life in it. The final book I want to talk about is kind of a cookbook, kind of food writing, and that's Cook As You Are, Recipes for Real Life Hungry Cooks and Messy Kitchens by Ruby Tandoh. So I thought I would talk about this in a wrap-up because there are essays within this, and I really enjoyed those essays. Ruby Tandoh is one of my favourite food writers. We all know this. Her little books live on that shelf up there. I think this is a really great cookbook, and I think it is designed in such an easy and accessible way. Like, every recipe has notes on how you can adapt it based on dietary requirements. Every recipe has notes on how you can adapt them if you're someone who struggles with different mobility issues. Like, what are ways that you can sub in different ingredients that might be easier to prepare, like if you have dexterity problems, that kind of thing. If you just have low spoons and you don't have a lot of energy for cooking. It's also split into sections that kind of reflect that. There are sections that are like much more time-consuming cooks, and then there are sections that are like this. You can make all of this out of your store cupboard. There's like a whole there's like a little index at the back to like easily show you like if you're gluten free, what recipes can you make, that kind of thing. It has illustrations throughout rather than photographs to give you an idea of what it's like, but to not like prescribe what it should look like. I just think it's wonderful. I think Ruby Tandoh and her attitude and approach to food is one that works so well for me. And I just thought also the essays were delightful. I just enjoy reading how she writes about food, the different like food memories she brings up, how much some of her writing really taps into like all of my senses sometimes. Like even just the description, like there's a wonderful description in Eat Up where she's talking about cream egg season, and like I can every Easter I think of that essay. Every time I see a cream egg in a shop I think of that essay. So I just love her, and I'm excited to cook from this. I haven't made anything from it yet because it's only just arrived, but I just thought I'd throw it on the end because I love her. Those are all the books I wanted to talk about this week. I would love to hear if you've read any of them. I would really love to hear your thoughts. Please do leave me a comment down below. Otherwise, I hope you're having a really lovely day, and I will see you next time for something different.